I'm your co-host, Mike Jackman, joined as always by,
The other twin, Mr. Eric Jackman.
and we're very excited today. We have a friend of, 13, probably 13, 14 years now, guys. Friend of 14 years, an OG in searching for the truth and telling the truth about what's going on. A producer of Loose Change, Second Edition, Loose Change, Final Cut. He created the films Invisible Empire, Fabled Enemies, which is still one of the best films about 9/11. Folks, we have the Info Warrior. We got the leader of the Burmis Brigade, Jason Burmis. Jason, how you doing today, man?
I'm super excited to be here. I think you guys know that I'm super excited to be here. I wish we could have done it in person, but I guess that everybody is now doing everything virtual, even though all those talk shows that are hackneyed and terrible and have been for decades are even more apparent that they are hackneyed and terrible. And as I understand it, gentlemen, we are going to be having some pints. So I have my Red Jug Pub, the bar I used to run, glass here. I'm wearing my Sunday Fun Day Red Jug Pub t-shirt, and I'm making a decision on whether we're going to open up with Bengali or the Crisp. What should I do here, guys?
Well, what's the difference? What are you looking to achieve? I mean,
Well,
what are we talking?
I don't know if there's an achievement here, gentlemen. I've had beers in my day. I normally don't drink alone, but obviously I'm not alone because I'm with you two guys. We're gonna leave the almost invisible resin beer for the coup de grace. We go there because this is a 9.1. But basically, one of the things I stocked up on just to kind of have in this whole madness situation was booze. I never have booze at home. I'm a social drinker. I go out to the bars to socialize. It's not like a big part of my life. But with everything going on, I thought to myself, well, I better grab some varieties of beers in case I need some, and I'm glad I did so. So what do you think, guys? Crisp or Bengali?
All right, you know what? You got to go with the Benghazi and then Almost Invisible Empire later. That's all I could think of, Jason.
I'll drink to that.
You teed it up, man. You teed it up. We got to do the Benghazi first.
There we go, and it's the Bengali. Let's get a professional pour here, gentlemen. You really
Nick, that tilt. Let's see that tilt. Look at that tilt.
Yeah, look at the tilt.
It's so easy. A lot of people don't understand. All you want to do is keep that close to the glass, not quite hit it until the pour's there, and then you're going to have a healthy but not an overt head on the top of your beer for some deliciousness right there.
True professional.
Thank you.
And as always, we want to thank Post and Beam Brewing, where we film our shows normally, which is in our neighborhood. And Erica and Jeff, thank you so much for providing a growlers to go from a safe distance. And we are drinking the Nocturnal Me Kolsch from Post and Beam Brewing tonight. So
yeah, cheers to you, Jason.
Cheers to you, gentlemen. You know? Cheers indeed.
Cheers.
Cheers all the way around.
Mm-hmm. So I guess we got to start with what's going on, what everyone's thinking about and talking about. Although today, thankfully, we were able to forget about it for a couple hours because we did some safe social distancing with some friends. So we talked about something other than this, but the coronavirus. You've been covering this, I think, since December or January. What do you make of where we are now in April with the coronavirus, Jason?
I mean, it's really tough because there are some people that are just in complete denial that any of it's real, and that's frustrating to me, especially being in New York and talking to nurses on the scene and trying to break down the numbers so much. I'm glad that it seems like the lockdown is subsiding and that the militarization is not as bad as I feared it would be. I think we have a long way to go because there's so much rhetoric being thrown out. And I also think that the economic repercussions of all this have barely been felt at this point.
Yeah, no, I agree, and I think there's, we were saying earlier, there's almost there's two camps with the coronavirus. There's some people who kind of feel like the whole thing's a giant hoax, which I don't agree with, and then there's some people who think you have to stay inside, never go out, and totally react as if this were like the end of the world. I think we have to meet somewhere in the middle, and we should, be safe with what we're doing, and just use some of our own intelligence, and the word you like to use, the D word, discernment. And, the last 5+ weeks we've been doing that. I mean, my uncle and my aunt have it. One of my friends has it, and it is serious. I mean, these are otherwise healthy people who are having trouble breathing, and it's real. So, the numbers. I mean, we can talk about the numbers. We can talk about the infection rate. We can talk about the origins. But this is actually a real thing that's going on. And I think another thing we should pay attention to is how the powers that be are going to respond, and they're going to use this situation to consolidate more power and to keep us in a state of perpetual fear.
Absolutely, and they really already have, right? And they've caused so much confusion, right? We're not allowed to talk about this being biological warfare unless we go along with a mainstream line. In other words, that it leaked out of a biolab in Wuhan. There are very strict rules about what we can say. It has to leak out of a biolab in Wuhan, and it can't be an actual bioweapon. They were actually working on a vaccine, and it still had to go to the animal and the pangolin. For some reason in 2020, we can acknowledge a lot of man's technological feats, good or bad, nuclear power, nuclear weapons, etc. But we can't seem to acknowledge that biological warfare has been a fact of human existence now for 4+ decades that we have seen visibly, Vietnam being most prominent example. But we go through the human experimentation that we did on our own citizens here in the United States. Again, Tuskegee being the most publicized, but far from the only programs that were played out. So that's alarming. And it's alarming, to me at least, that this was kind of the basis without any reason given to me at all, any warning given to me to demonetize my entire channel, make me go to the GoFundMe fully. Right? I still haven't gotten an explanation. I've just been told that I can no longer monetize any content, and I have no recourse for that. And yet 90+% of what I do is not speculate, but bring up mainstream media articles, correct? And mainstream media clips and government documents that are legitimate and go over them with my audience. That's all. That's 90% of my content. And somehow that's harmful. That's pretty alarming to me.
There's got to be somebody who's kind of keeping track of what's going. There's probably someone who's on the payroll at YouTube and Google who their main job is just to look at guys like you. I mean, now that you have and congratulations, by the way, for breaching 50,000 subs. That's awesome.
Let's drink to that.
Yeah, I'll drink to that, man.
Congratulations, Jason.
That's
freaking
beautiful, man. Yeah.
You are doing, Burmis, you are doing fucking laps around the legacy media. You were doing laps around them, my friend. So you were to be lauded for that.
Well, I appreciate it, but I mean, again, when the legacy media isn't pointing out the fact, and obviously had the resources to do so, that being put on a ventilator was an 80 to 90% death sentence. And for me to start saying that, and then people saying I'm fear-mongering, and then for that to become a mainline talking point because of doctors like Dr. Cameron Siddell down in New York City, and his video going viral. And notice the mainstream didn't latch onto that video. You just eventually heard, oh, well, they're treating this a little differently now. And if you go on a ventilator, yes, it is an 80% chance that you're going to die. I mean, these are facts. And again, you can look at the numbers, especially in New York, where the biggest outbreak has happened in this country. And you have, not tens of thousands yet, but on the brink of tens of thousands. That's almost 20,000 unaccounted for deaths that don't seem to fit into the averages of previous years.
Right. Yeah. And it's interesting, too, because a lot of people are seem to be just listening to the Cuomo brothers or to Bill Gates. Who anointed Bill Gates in charge of this whole deal? And I wanted to ask you about Bill Gates, Burmis, because you talk about him obviously in your channel, and you've had Whitney Webb on, and you've talked about, Gates's connections to Jeffrey Epstein, which we can get into later. But you see so many people sharing memes on Facebook where Bill Gates is this god now. He's this godhead. We have to listen to him. We got to share his memes. We got to watch his fucking Netflix series and just, pray to the altar of Bill Gates. And you have two extremes. Again, you have people who love him and think which I think polls show he's the most respected or admired man in the entire globe. And then you have people who hate him and think he's behind everything nefarious. What's your take?
Well, I kind of lean towards sympathy for those that are at least observant enough to realize that there might be something else behind his motivations to create GMO mosquitoes, to vaccinate people against malaria, or to have hurricane machines that can knock out storms and control the weather, or when he puts up equations at TED Talks, and I was showing somebody this earlier, where you had an equation that essentially said that either we find 0 point energy or we have to end all life on Earth that emits carbon dioxide. And please check it out yourself. I can see where people are skeptical when the media props him up with guys like David Rockefeller, Henry Kissinger, Ted Turner, at the super best friends meeting with Michael Bloomberg and Oprah Winfrey, where they're going to take on population control back in 2009. Yeah, I've got questions. And a lot of people don't understand, these experimentations that are going on often aren't done through these foundations in the United States. Why? Because it would be illegal and inhumane to do them here. And we have to remember that India kicked the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation out of their country based on allegations by people that they were harming citizens. Now, in court, I believe the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation won, so I'm going to be very careful here. But that didn't mean they didn't get them the fuck out of there. And that should show you the kind of power that people outside of nation states have. George Soros did meet with that group I just talked about. That's not a joke. Like, that group really met in 2009 to talk about population control. At the same time, I'm not accusing any of those people individually of releasing this on their own, and I'm certainly not going with the narrative it was an American bioweapon like China's blaming, right? China and Iran have now publicly stated that, and now we're floating the idea in the United States through the Epic Times documentary and Sean Hannity and Tucker Carlson, others, that it's a leak from that biolab in Wuhan, etc. Those seem to be more accepted narratives. But how many biolabs are there, and how many groups outside of nation states have a desire to control humanity? Why does it have to be China or America? Let's face it, man. Our intelligence agencies, the CIA, the FBI, even the Mossad, they don't do the dirty work anymore. They hire Stratfor or Booz Allen Hamilton or Black Cube.
Right.
So what's not to say you got just somebody that's ready to go rogue and put this out there for their own benefit before they die, before they meet their maker. There's so many scenarios on who could have put this out. I often liken it to Children of Men. Why? Because in that post-world where nobody can have children and this virus is spread, you've got the people that don't trust the government, the people that think it was, rogue groups, the people that think it's natural. I mean, there's just so many conflicting narratives. Nobody knows who to trust anymore. And you got to remember the guys at the top, the Bilderberg Group. What was one of their directives? The post-truth world.
Well, post-truth world, and we now have a post-truth presidency where you can't even keep up on the lying and the obfuscation and the bullshit and just covering up and misdirection, and it's unbelievable, Burmis. I mean, and this is what I love about what you do, Burmis, because there's things about Trump we all like. Like, there's things that the Jackman brothers, we love about Trump. I know there's things you love about him, but then there's things you're like, Jesus, Trump, man, that sucks. That's stupid. You're ill-informed. You have a bunch of neocon vipers around you, warmongering assholes who want to go into Iran. They want to do the bidding of Netanyahu, the bidding of Saudi Arabia, X, Y, and Z. But, where are we going? I mean, is Trump, who's leading Trump? Is he just like totally oblivious and not even understanding what's happening with this whole thing? Or is he following a narrative from someone during this?
Well, here's how I feel about the whole thing. Especially with the coronavirus in particular. I don't think they were straight up with him. In fact, before the Red Dawn emails came out, I predicted you would see more and more leaks that would suggest that the administration should have been more prepared. But again, no direct links to Trump outside of maybe a briefing, right? Like a little small memo. And during this time, you can damn well bet with all of the CEOs that left, even Bob Iger at one time of Disney, and then having to come back in, and that was later on in the game. Prior to that, in places like November, you saw two big Google CEOs step down. You saw this kind of record number. Let me tell you why you saw that, because those people work internationally. Those people realized this was real. They realized they locked down Wuhan, China for a reason. They knew it was going to come to the United States at some point. And when you saw all these second, then first world nations also locking down, they knew it was coming here. So the economics, who knew, right, where it was going to go from there? That means our intelligence community knew. That means at some point pretty early on, Michael Pompeo knew, okay, as Secretary of State and ex-head of the CIA. That means Gina Haspel knew. That means even the Department of Justice, Bill Barr, knew. But they all patted around Trump and said, listen, it's not a big deal, it's not a big deal, it's not a big deal. Let's go with the WHO. We'll just go by their guidelines, et cetera, et cetera. And then other people were like, well, maybe we should take it a little more seriously. That's why we stopped the flights from China. Right, and then he was xenophobic, and I mean the media ran with all that, and he was
Pelosi and
everybody.
What about the? So what was the name of that? Basically drill that happened. Was it last year? Was it called Dark Water or Dark?
Dark Winter, but that's I believe Dark Winter was much longer than a year ago.
So that was like a scripted simulation of what would happen if a pandemic broke out.
Well, the one that happened just before it was Event 201. Dark Winter is much older. But Event 201, I mean, when you're talking about the talking heads they put on television during the real pandemic and the ones that were at this table, which was put on at Davos, the World Economic Forum, with Johns Hopkins University and Tom Inglesby moderating the whole thing in conjunction with the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation. I mean,
right, yeah.
I mean, I haven't even scratched the surface because we didn't talk about how the Chinese CDC was there, the American CDC was there, Stephen Rice there, and then you have George Gao. I mean, George Gao, by the WHO standards, they phoned it in, by the way. They didn't have an actual representative. They just did some free video.
Did a conference call.
Yeah, they phoned it in. But George Gao was allowed to double the mortality numbers in a day for China with no repercussions at all, no pushback. That should tell you how corrupt these people are. And who are they sitting with? Johnson & Johnson.
And you've talked about it too with the same thing with anthrax. I mean, people have such a short memory. I mean, that was under 19 years ago, just after 9/11, and a lot of the actors who were involved in anthrax, and you've talked to Whitney Webb about this. Hopefully, we can get her on at some point. Are now involved telling us about the coronavirus. So it's interesting.
Yeah, all these same players. And again, if you talk about biological warfare, you're a crazy conspiracy theorist. You're so nutty. But in the Project for a New American Century document that so many people point out with that new Pearl Harbor, what else are they talking about? Biological warfare in the coming decades as that new mechanism. That's a reality. I didn't put it on paper. I'm not part of any think tank. Nobody's saying, Jason Burmis, come on into the Council on Foreign Relations and the Trilateral Commission. We need your ass. But they're out there. I mean, it's
they
there.
They wouldn't want you there, man. They wouldn't want you there. You know, so it sounds like Bilderberg's definitely canceled because that's usually in June. And you've been talking a lot about the Bohemian Grove, the history of the Grove. You've got those really incredible. They're like encyclopedias. They're like official. They're like yearbooks. They're like junior high yearbooks of the Grove. Annals of all these elites cross-dressing and worshiping an owl, and those are the people that are in charge. That are the opinion makers that shape perception, that decide on war and peace, on the economy, and not many people have much of an idea about that. So what's that all about?
Yeah, it's been something I've been interested in for how long? If you've seen Invisible Empire, I had a couple of them back then. I've always been enthralled. So over the years, I picked up several. My interest has re-peaked as I'm trying to find things that, excuse me.
Oh, beer. Take a little.
Excuse me. Oh, yes.
Weaving spiders may not enter. Yeah, there's InfoWars.
And we'll get to that in a second. That's hilarious.
Burma, so I can't wait to talk to you about your trip to DC.
I was even just going to get into the people that are in my chat rooms denying that Jones got into the Grove. back in the day when I had Rob Jacobs, because at one point they re-released Dark Secrets inside Bohemian Grove, with the footage being remastered, etc. And we'll get that right out of the way. With remastered and etc. And when they did that, he showed me how he stabilized the footage, right? And aside from that, I was also in like the archive. So I like actually handled the footage that said Bohemian Grove, and we watched the raw DV tapes of some of Alex getting through that wasn't published or whatever. And I got to hear people say that he didn't really get in or it was staged.
No, he was there. That 99 or 2000? What year did he do that?
It's in 98, I think. I think it was in 98.
That was
before I was following him.
There's
for
no
sure.
doubt, full stop, 100%. Emmerich fucking penetrated the Grove.
He got into the Grove.
We went there. I had the owl up my ass. I did the code. I rattled off the codes. All right, we talked about the Phoenix Project. It was unbelievable. David Rockefeller gave me a hand job, folks, but I'm not gay. Infowars.com.
So what's really interesting outside of like the weird occult stuff and the owl, and believe me, I go into all that, and the cross-dressing and the man's club, is the things that I can actually learn from these annals that I'm getting, because they're not every year, by the way. They're that I've
Every
now
10,
confirmed
12 years.
10. I've only got 10 of them, and there's only 10. And
Well, one volume might be from like 1970 to 1985 or something, right? Like
yeah, but there's
like
one that just is the Centennial Edition that's extremely thick. That does a lot more than that. And the thing is that
Burmis, is thick spelled THICC?
One day, yes, I make love to the books.
I'm sorry to interrupt. I want to pick your brain, Burmis. Dude, has Donald Trump ever been to Bohemian Grove? Look, I went there. It was so gay. It was so disgusting. I went to plenty of Elton John concerts. I didn't need to go to Bohemian Grove.
Well, let's say this.
What do you think, Burmis?
If he doesn't go, he would be the first Republican president not to go since Coolidge. So if he hasn't gone yet,
dude, Burmis, are you fucking serious?
he would be the first. I got a picture in there of George Bush with a bunch of people dressed like spooks back when
yeah, they're kind of
I
like
love that picture. Yeah, they're kind of. And Mike, that reminds me, Burmis, when we, we sat down with Andy Card. We're bros with Andy Card.
Okay.
And Mike was just like kind of off the cuff, like George H.W. Bush. He CIA before he was director? No. He wasn't. No. Yeah, he was.
It's so funny because I just had a fraternity brother, older guy, over, and we were supposed to have our alumni weekend this weekend. And he lives about 90 miles out, so he just wanted to get the chicken from the place and wanted to get out of the house or whatever, so he came over. And I was literally showing him not half an hour ago, right before we started, footage of George H.W. Bush and the memo from J. Edgar Hoover of him being at Dallas as the head CIA officer, showing him
Bush
footage
in the
of the
CIA.
showing him footage of the Secret Service, being called off of JFK's car just before the assassination, and showing him how Hinckley, the man that shot Reagan 69 days, I think, into his presidency, his family was heavily connected to the Bush family, and that Hinckley is no longer in jail. So
yeah, his brother was supposed to meet with Marvin Bush or Neil Bush that night. Bush that
the
night.
next night they were supposed to have dinner, and they had called that off. To get back to the Grove and how interesting it is.
I cut you off, Burmis. You were talking about the picture. They were all pretending to be spooks with Poppy Bush.
Well, no, you were just saying, Trump. I'm just saying if he hasn't been there, it'd be interesting. But even more interesting than just the annals, guys. Let me show you this one. This one's going for about $150 on eBay. Okay?
There are copies. I want a copy of that.
I live for this.
All right, so I'm starting to read this, and what's really interesting about this is the greatest men's party on earth inside the Bohemian Grove. It's got Pan on the cover. It's published in 74, but I think that he got to go in 72, and it's a guy named John Vanderseat, right? So he gets to go in and actually give a first-hand account, and even has the Bohemian Grove cremation of care ritual and what they say while they cremate Dahlcare in the beginning. Talks about Richard Helms being there, etc. But if you just look, again, so important for everybody to understand about how important this is and relevant even today. Redwood in Hollywood, the bomb. Okay, that's literally referring to the nuclear project. That's where it started. Wall Street and Shangri-La. Guys, in 74,
Oh,
there
come
was a
on,
truth
Jason.
teller.
Somebody would have talked. Somebody would have talked about the largest secretive program of all time. There's no conspiracies can exist. Somebody would have talked.
Burmish, you know what stuck with me too, man? When you were talking about it, I think with Steve, you're like, this is the elite's middle class.
It's literally in their books.
These motherfuckers are the middle class, dude. They got like $100 million. What does that make me, man?
Well, brother, it's in. I can't wait to show it to everybody. I've got to
Oh,
go
shit.
in. I want to say it's in volume 8, the art volume. And I'm so mad I didn't buy that volume 9
Ooh.
We're
friggin'
gonna get that
yesterday.
for
It's
you.
going to be a
We'll
huge
get it.
That's your
regret.
early Christmas gift because no one's living to Christmas, so we're gonna get that for you.
Yeah.
We're not gonna be around for Christmas, so.
But Burmis, what does that mean that these fucking guys, like the dude from the Grateful Dead, Colin
The guy
Powell,
from The Simpsons,
Reagan, like,
Spinal Tap.
dude, these guys are middle class. I mean, what does that mean, Burmis, about the predator class, like you call them?
Well, it's exactly what you think it means. It's them furthering their agendas of their masters without really even knowing it, with feeling a fraternal bond with them, right?
Right.
Because
It is a lot of fun. It's fun. Yeah, it's a lot. Hey, we're having fun, but we're not sacrificing babies and worshiping an owl. We're having a good time, folks.
one of the things that really caught me already reading this, I got to find it here, but was the amount of encampments that were actually
Yeah.
in there. Because
Oh,
it's-
hillbillies?
oh my goodness.
Bohos, hillbillies, yeah. Imagine being Colin Powell's bunkmate after the fucking Iraq disaster. It's like, oh, bro, that was kind of embarrassing.
Here it
I'd
is.
cover up my third eye, but I just got to cover up this one. Jay-Z style.
Jay-Z style.
I mean, the Bushes, man. You know, it's just like people don't even realize this shit. They think about Poppy Bush, Burmis, when his death was what, like a year or two ago.
Yes.
And my uncle, a funny thing about my uncle's like, oh my god, man, when Poppy Bush dies, I'm gonna fucking tie balloons to my car. You know,
I reminded him of that, too. He's like, did I
Just
say that?
to celebrate. But like, dude, H.W. Bush was the fucking OG of like spying and operations and surveillance.
Wall
and
Street meeting government. Yeah.
Wall Street, dude, and fucking around the planet, Burmis, and people don't even realize this.
That's why he got a big section in Invisible Empire. You know, that's why he got that who the hell is this guy section, because people need to know who he is. Now, the Grove has grown over the years, right? But again, published in 74. Let me show you just an idea of the compartmentalization, okay?
Yeah.
There are 126 camps in all, okay? Clubs within the club. Each has a main cabin with a kitchen, bathroom, shower, dining room, and bar, as well
bunch
as
of boys.
individual
Lindsey Graham is
sleeping
definitely the
cabins.
dishwasher.
Hold on. The size and extent of these camps are astonishing, and so are the logistical problems they raise. It suddenly seems as if all the river towns are enterprises, the cabins and liquor stores, the drugs and hardware stores, glassware shops, carpenters, gas stations, bars, electricians, glaziers, all of them are based around this seasonal community of 3 weeks. Think about that. That's
July,
incredible.
Burmis. Now, Burmis, let me ask you, dude, the Kennedys didn't fuck around with this. Jack and Bobby, they didn't
Robert
fuck around.
is in here. Robert, listen again.
No, Burmis, no, say it ain't so, Burmis.
Brother.
We speak of a drag show with people. Teddy's dressing up as the owl, and
Let me find
Driving
it
off the
because
bridge.
I just read it, and you know me, man. I
No,
always
it's not about left or right.
No, it's not. And Burmis, look, you know I love the Kennedys, man. You know I love JFK. I love Bobby. I'm into the Kennedys. But, dude, if you found them in there, Burmis, if you got the documents, if you can show us the documents.
There's a goblin's nest. They're getting goblin slop on them, folks. I mean, look right above your shoulder there is Congressman Ron Paul. Below the star is Luciferian. That doesn't mean that Ron Paul's Luciferian.
here. Let me
Maybe
read you
you
just a
got
couple
Tulsi Gabbard.
passages.
Hold on, Mike.
Ready?
Burmis, tell us about Robert Kennedy.
Before we get to Kennedy, because I want to be fair, I want to get to this one. If the president came to, this is why Nixon wasn't coming the year he was there. All right, so he's
Staggity.
explaining why Nixon isn't coming this year. To maintain the club's policy of excluding the press, Secretary of Defense Melvin Laird is expected. However, And Secretary of State William Rogers, William F. Buckley Jr., is in camp carrying a sheaf of Bach pieces, which he seems determined to play on every available piano. David Niven is here, and Earl Warren, Richard Helms, that's the
Whoa.
ex-head of the CIA,
That's
Andy
juicy.
Devine,
Juicy.
Herman Walk, and Art Linkletter. Now let's get down to where he brings up Kennedy. He goes,
Linkletter.
why have the paths of American men as seemingly diverse as Dwight Eisenhower and Bobby Kennedy, Pat Brown and Richard Nixon, Earl Warren and Barry Goldwater all passed through this one-way woods? So I am stoked to finish this bad boy.
Oh.
What a book.
Can you send that to us when you're done, Burmis? I want to read that.
I want the book. I want the document. I may scan this in.
Give me the
I
book,
may
give me
do
the
that.
book,
I may
Burmis.
PDF it.
Okay.
No, Burmis. Nixon's quote about the fucking Grove.
I don't shake hands with anybody from that bohemian. He admits to attending it from time to time. That's the most goddamn faggoty thing you could imagine.
Well, gentlemen,
There was a hot mic that caught that.
Hey, we can say it. He did say it. Hold on.
I'm just
talking.
quoting a
I'm gonna hear
president.
in a
I'm not fucking. Yeah, no, I'm quoting a president. Absolutely.
So, all right. So the Kennedys, everybody, dude. If you've been in power in the last,
You're at that level. 130 years, 125 years.
Mm-hmm.
Right? Doesn't this go back to the 1870s or 1880s?
So,
Yeah, well-
1872 is when it's founded, but it actually probably goes
148
back
years?
to the 1850s. Check this one out right here. I think I showed this, but I haven't taken the picture yet. Think about these old dudes that had a whole bunch of owls in things and took a picture back in the day and got them to stay there, basically. I don't know if they killed them and mounted them to get that picture, but
Well,
man.
one of my favorite memories of so we're in New Hampshire, as your viewers may or may not know, and one of my favorite memories from you can call it truth squatting or bird dogging or asking presidential candidates a question about whatever you want to, if you have the balls to do it or you can get close to do it. You can call it, bravery or stupidity. I think it's a mixture of both on my part. But I saw former New Mexican governor Bill Richardson, who has been named in the whole Epstein deal, which we can get to. I saw him in 2007 or 8 when he was running for president in Keene, New Hampshire, and I watched him speak. I watched him go through all his bullshit, and then there wasn't a lot of people up there. I just kind of went up to him and I was like, my friend wanted me to ask you. You spoke at the Bohemian Grove, and supposedly you were giving a talk about energy. Are you a member? And he was like, he was like looking around, like, he was like, I spoke for like an hour and it was just about energy policy and no, I'm not a member. And he couldn't get away from me quick enough. I mean, that tells you everything, man. I don't know.
Look, man, the bottom line is they call the owl a deity. I get it's about wisdom, but
Well, look.
another myth that I just bursted is that they've
Moloch.
never referred to Satan in any of their works. No, I have their internal documents. Now we know that Satan is actually speaking on behalf of Care. And Dull Care is the Grim Reaper like being that rose up on the boat and gives the effigy to the two underlings, the neophytes.
Is that Walter Cronkite? Walter Cronkite does a recorded intro, right? Is that him?
That is what they say. They say they used that later on because it is recorded. Again, word for word, John Vandersea actually says what they say in the representation. But, there were news clips out there. I put out, for instance, when they were talking about the bomb and all that other stuff, it's an invisible empire. And the cross-dressing aspect to me, to me it shows you just like how repressed and chameleon-like a lot of these people
in fact,
are.
they're still in college, I mean, do you think ultimately a lot of these guys are just trying to get away from their wives and blow off some steam for a long weekend?
That's some of it, but I think it's more, especially with this club, is again, men of power. They realize how much they can gain from this, but again, what's it based in? It's based in paganism, right? Even before the owl deity, they had the giant Buddha. In fact, in one of these, you can see them actually erecting it. I'd never seen that
that's
before.
interesting. Yeah. It's interesting, too. I read an interesting blind that I believe it was two members of Congress contracted HIV, later died of AIDS from a male prostitute up there in the 70s.
More than likely.
They died
but
in the 80s or 90s. or I think it was the 80s. But you guys can. I don't remember the names, but they have gay prostitutes up there. I mean that's kind of a known thing.
Well,
You know? And
I'm glad you brought that
a
up.
lot of your reports, these are guys who were touting good Christian family values. Meanwhile, they're
They're the Ted Haggerts of the world.
Well,
yeah.
I just want to put this right out there because we have the documents, and
What's that
this
purpose?
gentleman was there. If you can read that, it says not just men, but boys and men work there. I'm not saying, that something definitely happened with boys. I know there are allegations out there in the Franklin cover-up, etc. But we do
Oh,
know
yeah.
Chad Savage, the male, the male
Yep.
porn star was there in
Gay
2004.
porn star.
If you watch Invisible Empire, the person that works there that's talking about the stunts that these guys pull is obviously a gay man. Again, I have no problem with what you do as an adult with other adults. I have a problem when you portray yourself as a Christian conservative to fleece the masses in a chameleon-like manner.
Like Larry Craig, yeah, or any of those guys, really. He had a wide stance. Larry Craig had in his defense, he had a wide stance.
Burmers, did you watch the documentary about the family?
Which family?
The one that Mark Sanford's a part of, and they do the prayer breakfast in DC.
On Netflix. It's on Netflix.
No, I've not.
Oh man, yeah, you're gonna check it out, man. The family is they're everywhere, and Mike and I interviewed Mark Sanford, and it was something that I debated. Am I gonna ask him about it? Should I ask him about it? If I do, will he get out and walk out of our
We had
interview?
like 15 minutes with him. That was like one of our most rushed interviews, even though he dropped out of the race that day.
So what exactly is the family about? Just like the international cartel that's out there?
Yeah, so the family, they basically, the guy behind it who started it going back to like World War II times was a Nazi fan, like a fanboy of the Nazis' practices and what they believed and how they did things. And it was like, masked as a male organization, your community, you're going to do good. You're going to network with business leaders, political leaders, people in media, people in government, and bring it all together. And Mark Sanford was part of the family. And Mike, you might need to, John Ensign from Nevada and other people. And they were like basically living rent free on Capitol Hill.
In like a big row house.
A big row house right near Capitol Hill, which I walked by when I lived in DC for a year, and I was like, "Holy fuck!" They lived here, and they were like essentially living rent free, and it was it's like basically a cult, and I don't know. I
so
wish
is it
I asked
basically
them
one
about
of
it,
these
Permis.
finder situations where some kind of counterculture group has all these connections and you don't know what's actually going on?
Yeah.
It's shady. It's definitely shady.
What do you think, Mike? What is the family, Mike?
Well, I think unfortunately with the whole Sanford deal, which was one of the largest political scandals of the last probably 15 years, which was really, I mean, he was committing infidelity on his wife, obviously, and with
He was stupid some hot girl in Argentina.
Yeah, well, I mean, then there's other. The documentary goes into the other infidelities that were committed with people.
Ensign from Nevada,
right? And people who were close to him, and the guidance that they sought from the family.
right?
And I think it's like anything, man. Whether it's Skull and Bones, which you cover extensively, or any other organization or cult, they have blackmailable material on each other. They have compromise. They know each other intricately from a very young age, and if you step out of line or you misspeak about it, you could be excommunicated and your whole career could be ruined. So him, having the affair with the gal down in, what was it?
Argentina,
that's really not really a big deal. It's kind of the tip of the iceberg, but they made that the focus and they made that the story, as opposed to the shadowy organization that runs the National Prayer Breakfast and has that grift going for several decades back. So
I guess what I'm saying, Jason, is like my birthday's in October. My birthday wish is I want a Burmese deep dive into the family.
Into the family. All right. So I'll tell you what, I'm going to check it, and we will get into it. And I'm definitely something I'm interested in now that you gentlemen have made me aware of it.
So switching gears a little bit, but not too much. We're going to keep on the Predator class. Jason, you have done some of the best work on the Jeffrey Epstein case. Every single person that I've talked to going back years. I mean, Eric and I have been talking about Epstein for years, but you through your channel, through the work you've done, you've been saying this stuff about Epstein that is just common knowledge now, but years ago, to reporting on the Black Book, reporting on his associations with Clinton, reporting on his associations with Les Wexner, Donald Trump, and now you have back channels with the first victim to go to the authorities in '96, Maria Farmer. Talk to us about that.
Yeah, it's so important, right? Because it was only a year ago that her story breaks onto the scene about Epstein. And how old is her story? Well, it's in 1996. It's before I graduated high school, for God's sakes. And she not only went to the FBI about Epstein and Les Wexner and his network, but she went to the NYPD. Why is that significant? Nothing was ever done. Nothing was ever done. She went to the press as well. They're the cover-up crew. That's what I'm trying to tell you. Bill Barr isn't here to fight the deep state. He's here to protect them with limited hangout. That's all he is.
That's the cleanup crew.
I don't know what else to say to people, because if you can't understand that a woman who literally talked about a network that was taping people with a man surveillance crew in the basement everywhere in a New York mansion, that's a problem. And nothing's ever done. And her sister, by the way, underage, are sexually assaulted. Nothing's ever done. Why did people not question that? And then it takes another over 10 years for the Palm Beach situation to finally develop. And then this still doesn't make the media until 2019. And then the media refuses to talk about some of the things that she told them, including the fact that the Filipino women that worked at these estates were stolen women, including the fact that they couldn't find many of these victims, and she suspected that they were killed, including the fact that this guy had financial ties not only to Bill Gates and Donald Trump, but Les Wexner, who was the head of the snake. That this is an intelligence network, that they are dealing in women, young girls, children, arms, drugs. And Les Wexner's not just the guy that owns Victoria's Secret and Limited Brands. These are essential things that people need to understand. And even I was extremely ignorant to just a few years ago, but I was smart enough because of the reporting in Filthy Rich and others to know that Trump at least had a connection with Epstein. See, here's the problem, right? Like you said, there's some things you love about Donald, right? Donald will call out the press when they make up an obvious lie like no other president. He'll say the military-industrial complex.
He punked Jeb Bush. He completely punked Jeb Bush.
Give it to him, Donnie. Give it to him. But I wasn't ignorant enough before the video came out with him and Epstein to say they had no relationship. I said, look, we have it documented at least that Epstein rode on his plane. What are the chances that he didn't ride on his plane? I go on, that doesn't make him a child molester, but he definitely had a relationship with the guy. And then later on, when more reporting came out, and it was said that Melania may have been basically one of the girls that auditioned for Donald via a Jeffrey Epstein party, that's very possible. You can't ignore that.
Not only that, Burmis, fucking Maria disclosing to Whitney Webb that Ivana is traveling with Ghislaine Maxwell to get young girls from these fucking schools in New York City. What the fuck's that all about, man?
That's a huge revelation. Huge. And again, a lot of people aren't going to touch on that. But if you think about it, and you see the reporting I did on Claude Hadid, who's also in that Epstein book, it makes perfect sense because those are the type of girls, 13 and 14-year-olds in the 80s that were extremely vulnerable, and they would bring over to Europe and have them basically live in a house where they would compete with each other 5 or 6 at a time and be molested by these guys.
Unbelievable.
Yeah. Well, so we have Trump, who really, let's be honest, man. Trump's up to his neck with the Epstein shit. And it's not just him saying look, I wasn't a fan of Jeffrey Epstein. Okay, I was not really close to him. I wasn't a fan. Then you got the footage of him. He's all horned up. He's fucking. They're dancing next to each other. They're at Mar-a-Lago. The thought that it's just a real estate deal gone bad. I think there's probably more to it, and of course his relationship with the Clintons. I mean, that's there's any number of suspects who could have had him killed. In the prison, and let's be honest, they fucking killed him. He was killed. I think everyone with 2 brain cells has accepted the fact that he did not commit suicide. But it's interesting because you're talking about the NYPD earlier. Perhaps it was the NYPD and some good cops in there who had a little bit of jurisdiction and some authority to initially bring him in last year, which I remember. I was in complete shock when he got arrested. I couldn't believe it. I thought maybe this is actually the possibility and the chance that one of these fucking guys is going to be held accountable for their crimes and something's going to come of it. And I remember going into work the next day, and my buddy, who I've been talking about to Epstein for a number of years, was like, "Oh, Epstein's going to die in 3 weeks of a suicide." What happens a month later? So it's like
after the first time you didn't try to commit suicide. It's the craziest thing in the world. Listen, I think that's it. There was just so much pressure over so much time that people came forward, and like you said, the little guys, because sometimes we got to win, right?
There's
Weinstein.
Good people inside of all the systems. There's good people in the FBI. There's good people in the CIA. There's good people in all levels of government and institutions, because it's all, at the end of the day, it's all people.
John Kiriakou and Ray McGovern exist.
That's right. That is correct. Nobody's perfect, but there are good people.
Those guys are career CIA guys. I can vouch for John Kiriakou. I've had breakfast with him. He's a great guy.
Great guy. Great guy.
He's a great guy. We had breakfast at IHOP in Arlington. It was the greatest breakfast, and he told us Tim Kaine would be Hillary's running mate, and he was right.
Almost 2 years before.
That's a true story, Burmester. Did Mike tell you that?
This is before the primary. This is before Hillary announced. He was like, yes, Hillary's running. Hillary's going to be the nominee, and they already made a deal with Tim Kaine. He's going to be the VP pick.
Huh. Sounds like that intelligence network might have some intelligence they're not sharing with the public. Just so weird.
So, Burmis, the takeaway is that Donald Trump is fucking neck deep in the Epstein thing, and the MAGA people and your I call them QAnus, QANUS, because Q is a total bullshit, like Eric Prince, fucking stupid. It's so stupid, Burmis. I mean, I know you agree with me on this. The thing is, anonymous message boards on Reddit and wherever it is so stupid and so fucking harebrained. They have an explanation for everything. But Trump is neck deep in all this too, Burmis.
Well, let's talk about. I don't even know if I want to go into the QAnon phenomenon too much, or the Trump Apology Network.
Just trust the plan, Burmis.
All right, well Burmis, just give me your take on Q.
But what I do want to go into is Trump and Epstein really quickly, and the evolution of that, right?
Okay, and we got to mention Khashoggi's yacht.
Well, exactly. We're gonna get to that point in a minute with the Khashoggi stuff. But let's start it off. Even before he's elected, he feels like he's got the gravitas with a Sean Hannity audience, knowing from a guy like Roger Stone, who's buddied up with InfoWars at this point, that if he mentions Epstein and the relationship to the Clintons, it is going to be all over every single alternative media site. It's going to go viral.
It's going to go supernova, folks.
It's over. Exactly.
He went public, folks. He went public.
That along with, we're going to find out, Saudi Arabia financed 9/11. There were these key talking points that he knew had a lot of truth, were in the mainstream, and he was comfortable enough saying he couldn't be attacked. Now at least at that point, gave me the idea, yeah, maybe he had a relationship with Epstein, but he hadn't molested anybody, etc., which still may be the case, right? However, then when you finally get him, and it's down to the nitty-gritty, you have the most prolific child molester / billionaire / arms dealer / possible deep state operative ever, also an American citizen. And you kept El Chapo alive, but Epstein didn't kill himself not once but twice. Okay? All right. So let's stop. Let's roll it back because we're going to roll it back. Now, in the middle of that, you have some of that come out via Vicky Ward, who apparently is a demon, according to Maria Farmer. But leaks out.
She said she's just as bad as the FBI.
Shows you how many layers there are to this, gentleman. So many layers.
There are a lot.
So,
it's like a layer cake.
It's a layer cake. So she drops just a little Hinsky and Hutch, as she was the one that was going to break the story for Vanity Fair and break the veil of the mainstream media alliance, that Epstein had a relationship with Khashoggi and was involved in intelligence, and that's why he's gonna fucking, I can't remember him, the guy that looks like a frog, Acosta. That's why Acosta
we can't touch him. He's intelligence.
Gave him a sweetheart deal because they told him he was going to do it. They said, hey, you got a sweetheart deal. So first, in this whole mess, they let Acosta give a press conference during the Epstein fiasco. When he's asked about the intelligence ties and the fact that, you know, he may have gotten a deal, he doesn't say no. He says, I saw that story too, and let me just say, I wouldn't believe everything that's out in the press. I can't deny it on camera. Literally within 3 days, Donald Trump is next to him like this, like stink on shit.
They're on the tarmac together.
No space whatsoever, talking for him how he's decided to resign.
He did a great job.
What in the fuck does that tell you? And then, to make it full circle, bend over style, you know that he doesn't really get a say, and he's a puppet of the deep state. They make him take Dershowitz as a lawyer to defend him in the fake Russiagate. What else do you need to know?
Yeah, let's just go ahead, Burmis. Dershowitz is fucking dirty. He's been pointed out as an abuser, neck deep in the Epstein stuff.
Numerous times. Yeah, numerous times.
What, Burmis, why is he still a free man?
Because he's stealthy, man. He works inside the network. Why is Wexner
He has a lot of friends. Okay,
no,
so
he's a good lawyer. And,
Well,
these guys are snakes, and sometimes you fucking get in bed with the enemy. We've seen it time and time again in a place called reality, gentlemen, to get in bed with the enemy.
Well, here's reality, folks. Joe Biden's a Democratic nominee for 2020. It's going to be the shortest fucking presidency you've ever seen.
I don't think they're going to let him do it. Even today, they were like, the hashtag.
Is it Cuomo? What are they doing, Burmis? What's going on with this Biden shit?
I mean,
give me a
it's
fucking
crazy,
break,
right?
Dude.
Well,
Like,
first of all,
we talk about it. There's real cognitive decline. He has dementia, or there's something going on. It's not just his age; it's that he is. I mean, Bernie is older than Biden. Bernie's way sharper.
Bernie's sharp.
Okay,
well,
Biden is. There's something going on.
Listen, man. I mean, I don't even know what to tell you. I could pick up a thing of putty and it would be sharper than fucking Joe Biden. Literally, like this fucking this right here, this crumbled up piece of paper with nothing but like this jacket. This is sharper than Joe Biden.
Really, Democrats? Really, Democrats?
Is Tara Reid telling the truth?
Probably. In fact, I retweeted what appears to be her mother calling into Larry King today.
Yeah,
from years ago. I'd say this. Why is anybody surprised that Joe Biden, the guy in 2007 who sat next to Dennis Kucinich, and when asked, everybody was asked to say something nice to the candidate to the right of him, saying, what do you like about that person? He said, I like his wife. I mean, he literally said that Joey B style back then. He's on
Elizabeth's a very beautiful woman. She is very beautiful, Jason. I've met her many. I saw her recently. She's very beautiful. Dennis Kucinich is a very nice guy. You know, there's a reason he's not in public office anymore, because he's actually legitimate. Burmis, what do you think about Dennis Kucinich? Do you like him?
Yeah, I mean, he's one of the guys I speak up about that kind of got through the system and said a lot of truth and got out of politics.
Who did he endorse in 2020?
Who should he endorse?
No, who did he?
Don't tell me Biden.
No.
Oh my God! Was it Tulsi? Of course.
It's Tulsi.
Yeah, but then Tulsi ends up. Listen, Tulsi should say, "Listen, I'd love to endorse Joe Biden because I want to be strong for the party, but the man has visible dementia and the worst record ever, so I can't do it. I can't do it."
I understand.
You know what I'm saying?
I understand that, Burmis, and you know what? Kucinich is a. I didn't know this, but he's a mentor. Well, I know he's a mentor to me because I've known him for I met him in '07 for the first time, and I got to spend a whole day on Capitol Hill with him. He let me follow him and shadow him for a whole day on Capitol Hill, and it was one of the most amazing days of my life, man. I learned so much just in those fucking few hours. He's an amazing guy. He's real. He's legit, and he was also a mentor to Tulsi Gabbard. He had a pretty big following in Hawaii, and before Tulsi got into elected office, looked up to Dennis. Dennis helped out. You know, he was a mentor to Tulsi, and he endorsed her. He endorsed her during 2020. So, you know, that tells you something. If Dennis Kucinich says good things about you, if Ron Paul says good things about you, if Mike Gravel says good things, if Gary Johnson will say good things, you know, you're probably pretty good.
You're better than most. I'll say you're better than most. And you know, obviously, I'm rooting against that Predator class that seems just have a lock on
Oh, it's a
what
stranglehold. Yeah.
well what even political discourse can be. Not even what the conversation is. What it's allowed to be on even the digital platform that we're utilizing right now, right? Because who knows if they'll get this in the key words. Even though I'm a guy that has never said that the coronavirus is really a 5G outbreak, if I dare, like Dan Dix did yesterday, put 5G and coronavirus together on my title, I can say whatever I want about it. The Autobots, right, the AI automation, just takes it down and says it's against community standards. That's a scary thing.
Yeah, no, it absolutely is, and you know, it's lumped in with you know, the 5G and questioning that and wondering about it. I mean, David Icke going on London Real with Brian Rose, that was unbelievable. Did you watch any of that, Premise?
I did, and even though I disagreed with a lot of what Ike said, there's no reason to censor it, right?
Right,
and,
right.
you know what? I agree with a lot of what he said.
I'm off YouTube. You're still on YouTube, Jason. I got kicked off YouTube. You're still on there.
There it
You gotta
is.
talk about DC with Emmerich.
Oh,
Yeah,
let's do
yeah.
it.
You and Emmerich, you'll always have DC.
We will always have.
It's like
DC.
we'll always have. What is
So,
it?
Mike, so for people who don't know, Mike and the Jackman brothers call Alex Jones Emmerich because that's his middle name, and
We've been
Burmis
we've known about Alex Jones way before he was a thing.
yeah, no, we've known about him for a long time. Jason's known him for a while.
We
So
were the first ones to impersonate him accurately back in 2006. I'm going to say that right now. Okay, you can ask
Hands
Burmis and-
down, it was you guys.
You can ask Disco Dylan about that too. Okay.
Can I get a
I'll
Jones on
fucking-
Jones? Can I get a Jones versus Jones? I know you both do Jones.
Hey, look, 5G is real. It's horrible. Sandy Hook was a hoax. We're gonna buy Bitcoin. We're gonna buy shitcoin. Infowars.com. Let me stop you there. I never said 5G was real, folks. Okay, I had a really bad batch of chili. Rex was at his mother's house saying bad things about me. This is what happened, folks. Infowars.com. Roger Stone's DefenseFund.com. I mean, I never met Roger Stone. I wouldn't even know what he looked like. I don't know.
But Burmis, you went down to DC, and I love that you were there, and you were there. It was fucking awesome, you know, for whistleblowers and Assange and what you're doing. But you saw Rob Do, you met up with Emmerich. Dude, just tell us all about Jason Burmis reuniting with fucking Alex Jones and how many years it had been.
Yeah, it'd been almost 10 since we'd seen each other face to face. I think actually in 2012, you know, if you don't count me leaving in the middle of May of 2010, we saw each other at Bilderberg 2012. But we really didn't get to talk. I interviewed him really quick. Vice versa. I think I was on his show really quick. You know, nothing big. I'd been on and off the show a couple times since I left, but not much. For those that don't know, again, Jones produced several of my movies, but I was also the first person he ever gave a show to, The Info Warrior. And I'll keep the goddamn moniker. That's right. I'll keep
That's
it.
you, Burmis. Fuck
Burmis,
yeah.
you're the fucking best, dude.
Well, thank you, brother.
Hell yeah.
I
Amen,
appreciate
dude.
it. So
You're-
anyway,
You're better than Alex Jones. I'm just going to say that right now,
Oh,
Jason. I don't give a
stop.
fuck who it offends.
Stop.
You're not a sensational fucking moron, dude. You are solid, and you report facts, and you're not left or right. You're not a Trump toilet. You're real, and I love you. All right, go
Thank
ahead.
you, man. Thank you. And that was kind of the point because I was there for a totally different reason, right? My audience, again, through not to shamelessly promote, but through my GoFundMe, we hit a certain mark, and I said, you know what? I'm going to go meet the Action for Assange crew, and we're going to go talk about this terrible extradition with Julian Assange. So I go down to D.C. and I'm out in front of the White House, and I see Ford Fisher there. And I've never met Ford, but through working with We Are Change, I knew who he was, and I'd done stuff with him before. And he mentions that Owen Schroyer and the InfoWars crew are going to be around. And Owen Schroyer was going to be there at the Roger Stone hearing. So, yeah, I was like, I've never talked to Owen before. I think maybe this would be a good time to talk to him about Assange if I can go to the Roger Stone thing. Because, again, as much as I don't like Roger Stone, and I don't like that he's the godfather of modern-day lobbying, I think he got railroaded and should not be going to jail.
100%.
So, yeah. So, I mean, there's a connection point, and then we can have a real debate. You know what I'm saying? Because a lot of people have said, oh, Owen would destroy you. I'm like, Owen's great against a leftist. He's not going to be great against me.
No, Burmis, Owen isn't good against intelligence. You are an intelligent, fucking sentient, independent, strong-minded, like human being who has a grasp on the. Owen Schroyer is a dude. I don't want to insult him, but like, dude, nothing against you.
Again, Schroyer is good again when you're in that one paradigm, and it's very easy to
Paradigm is the operative word.
Yeah, disassemble the lies of the extreme left, right? Like,
Sure.
That's not hard.
Sure.
So, anyway, I went there, and I just missed Stone. InfoWars didn't show up, but I find out that there's going to be this national file emergency Alex Jones thing in D.C. like 4 miles away, and it's free to go to. You can sign up right there on the website. And I'm like, what are the chances? And at this point, I was staying with the Action for Assange crew. I hadn't even gotten a hotel yet, so I still had a little bit of money outside of what I'd spent on the car, right? And so I was like, fuck it. I'm just going to go stay there. They can't really kick me out if I go get a hotel room there. So I go, and it's this crazy, swanky hotel. Like, I have no business being in it. And you can tell, like, from all their history, it's where they have, like, a bunch of these little elitist events and whatever. But the day I'm there, I'm about to leave, and I see Jones with his new wife. And I'm thinking, as they're checking in. So at first, I actually did a video. You can watch me walking around. I wasn't sure what to do. I was kind of conflicted. I'm like, should I go and just talk to him now, or should I wait until at least tomorrow so I don't get kicked out of the hotel, especially if Alex wants to throw a fit? Because you never know with Alex Jones, right? Like, if I had just approached him.
He spotted Limerick, Eric.
I mean, it could have gotten ugly in the lobby. You never know how it could go sweet or not. And I could have got kicked out of the hotel.
Right.
So instead, I decided to cool off. But I see him take his new wife over to the bar. Okay. Okay. So I decide I'm going to go do a live stream. Yes, I go do a live stream. And you know what? I'm down to this one. I think I'm going to save it, guys. I think I'm going to stay. I'm going to try to have a dinner. I appreciate it. I'm going to have a dinner after this and not just go with a 9.1% alcohol rating beer.
We're having a liquid dinner. So
I think you should do it, Burmis. I'm going to peer pressure you. I think you should do it. Infowars.com.
Not going to happen. Anyway, so when I get back after my little talk, I go to the bar, and he's not there. And I'm like, all right, probably for the best. Probably for the best. So then the next day when the event is there, Patrick Howley of National File is putting it on. He's wrote for the Epic Times, a bunch of other independent organizations, Big League Politics, etc. He's done my show before. So I hit him up and I schedule an interview with him. And I'm like, oh, I'm going to get him. And then I run into Lee Stranahan in the hallway and I talk to him and I get him on with Patrick and we're doing this whole thing. I get done. Who walks by me but Rob Dew? We haven't seen each other in almost 10 years. Strike up a conversation, give each other a hug. However, we have kept in touch. You know, when Jones was on Rogan, Dew was there, and we were actually texting back and forth. You know, and I actually, again, I'll say it, and I'm not trying to blow Rob's spot up, but back in January of 2019, I gave them the McGregor story of McGregor being a violent serial rapist. I mean, I don't know what else to say. If you haven't seen my stuff, guys, there's playlists. But anyway, I did that. They wouldn't cover it, etc. But I thought this was even more important because we're talking about free speech. We're talking about the OPCW. We're talking about WikiLeaks, Assange. And you guys saw the video from there. You know, I took Rob to task on a lot of those issues in Assange. Alex rolled up with his new wife, and the shenanigans were afoot.
Do you think Emmerich had a nice little buzz going when he showed up? Do you think
I mean, listen, maybe not. I mean, again, the bar is there. I wouldn't put it past him. It was an open bar at the event later. He had promised me an interview after everything. But guys, if you watched it, as much as the back and forth and you begged for your job back and
You guys
no, I
love each
didn't.
other. Yeah, you guys love each other.
Well, I put him on the spot about Assange. I wasn't going to let him
Yeah.
get away without talking about
That
it.
was the right thing, Jason, too, because we needed him to comment on that, because that is a free speech matter that transcends fucking everything, dude. The fuckery and the crimes and assault, dude. Whatever, man. Assange,
And the other
Assange
thing is that they can cry and yell to me all they want that they covered it, but they sure didn't cover the OPCW, which for those that don't know, that is the confirmation through WikiLeaks recently after Assange has been officially, I don't even know what to call it, arrested because he hasn't been charged, but detained or whatever, and maybe
Tortured.
charged.
Basically
that
tortured.
these attacks in Syria never happened. Okay.
hashtag Tulsi.
Right? Yeah. And Tulsi's the one person that questioned it back
Who's
in the
the
day.
one in
with James
Congress who had the
Mattis.
balls, who had the courage
Yeah.
to question it?
So that not being covered by Alex was hurtful. And the fact that, he's in D.C. at the same time they're trying to extradite him to D.C. and that's not on the agenda of a free speech conference. I was like, you know what? I'm going to make him answer the thing. I'm going to put his feet to the fire. He would have done the same thing to me if I was as big as him with a megaphone.
10 years ago,
especially the old outfit.
exactly. No, I mean, exactly.
So he did. He answered it. And on top of answering it at the event, it was a strong talking point with everybody. Even guys like Nick Fuentes, who showed up, had to comment on it. I haven't put all that national file thing out there, but Millie Weaver had to talk about it. All of them had to talk about it. Owen Schroyer had to talk about it. And I'll tell you guys, I didn't have a lot of interaction with Alex after that, right? Me and Dew hung out. I hung out with Hank Harrison, some of the other InfoWars crew. Way later in the night, we had some drinks. But the last thing I said to Alex when I saw him, and it was in passing because he was getting mobbed by people, is I touched his arm as we walked by, and I said, "Thank you, Alex." And he looked at me, and he gave me the gravel, and walked away. And that was enough. That was enough. You know what I mean? And me and Dew, have talked back and forth. We're still in touch. And the thing is that, I'm still going to hold his feet to the fire on the Chi-Com Democrat narrative. And you have to. But at the same time, just like, Next News Network and Franchi, in my opinion, in a lot of ways, are too much of Trump cheerleaders. They just gave me an audience of, 1.5 million people potentially. You know what I'm saying? And now that audience gets to come and hear a conversation like this and maybe hear my perspective. And, hey, I don't think Orange Man bad, but that doesn't mean everything Orange Man do is good.
Orange Man not perfect.
Yeah, we're not just about bashing Trump. We're not just about bashing the left. We're about looking at the facts like you are, Burmis. And I think that's why we've been friends all these years, man. We called bullshit on 9/11 and the Iraq War very, very early on. And that informs everything going forward. So we've been going just over an hour now. So what do you guys think, Eric? Do you have another question, or Burmis?
Wow.
Do you have?
Yeah, I mean, I want to know, Burmis, what is the most pressing thing that you're working on right now? What is something that people need to know about who might not know about it, and where we can find you?
Well, it's tough. I think the most pressing thing now is where we go forward as a nation and a world in light of the post-coronavirus, whether you want to call it hysteria, pandemic, plandemic, event 202. I don't know. I don't know what you want to call it, but it's definitely a global transformative event. And now's the time to push back. And there were plenty of states that did push back, New Jersey being one of them, with arms. I would just say people need to really pay attention and look outside of not only a left-right paradigm, but a U.S. versus China paradigm, or a U.S. versus Russia paradigm, or a capitalist versus communist paradigm, and really look at that paradigm where there is a predator class that looks at the rest of us, whether we, salute the Chinese flag or the American flag, as just another bug. And that doesn't matter whether you have $10 in your bank account, 10,000, or even 10 million. They look at you as nothing. Again, the people at the Bohemian Grove are looked at as their middle class, folks. So we're not talking about the 1%. We're not talking about even the 0.1%. We're talking about the 0.001% at the top of many of these.
1% of 1% of 0.1% of 0.1% Ben and Jerry's.
Yes, Ben and Jerry's is delicious, by the way.
So good.
But
Yeah, no,
that's it, man.
I agree, Burmis. I think you're right, man. And I think you and Whitney Webb have talked about this. Epstein was viewed as middle management in this whole deal.
Exactly. A billionaire. A man that absolutely had $1 billion in wealth and assets, no doubt about it. Many a passport they don't want to tell you about, and a lot of access points to other elitists to control global events. That's what these people are, man. And we have to push back as much as we can, because I think that especially now, an AI-driven, post-human, singularity type society is what they want and what they're pushing for. And this track trace database society we've been living in for a long time is now going to be a post-physical money society if they get their way within the next decade. And that's very apparent. Just with the mechanisms and levers they were able to move in such a short period of time based on an invisible enemy that's origins are unknown, right? No matter what you want to speculate, is frightening enough.
Yeah, I think this has been a great excuse for the powers that shouldn't be to advance their agenda even quicker than it probably would have been without this disaster, right? I mean, they're ushering in, right? That you were talking about a cashless society. Local police departments are getting people to sign up for surveillance willingly. I was talking to a local business owner today who said that they were going into their business just to check on things, and people were taking photographs of them outside. So it's like people applauding Big Brother and people kind of wanting it and finding a comfort from it. And for anyone who's been paying attention, for any amount of time, that's kind of scary.
And, it is. And, once again, with all my predictions on this, I'm very glad to see that New York City wasn't encapsulated. I'm very glad to see there wasn't the military presence I had feared there was going to be. I'm very glad to see even Cuomo push back on Rhode Island when they went door to door with the National Guard looking for New Yorkers. So that also shows you sometimes middle management will say fuck you to upper management. That's a real thing. And as gangster as I think Cuomo and his brother are, there might be limitations to where Mr. Nipples Pierced is willing to go with New York State.
So, Burmis, we haven't even gotten to this, but I watched your video because Robbie Martin hit me up. Well, he posted on my Facebook when I posted about Out of Shadows documentary. And I turned to you, Burmis, to your take on it and your review on it. And I watched, you did like a 15, 20-minute review of Out of Shadows, and I thought it was brilliant. And it basically summed up how I felt about it. So if you could talk a little bit about the Out of Shadows documentary, what your takeaway was from it, what was bad about it, what was good about it.
Yeah, and Out of Shadows, a lot of people were, obviously going to attack me and say, oh, you're just jealous and this and that. And I was like, no, I mean, as far as a film goes and the narrative, the pacing, the production value, we're talking top of the line, right? We're talking top notch, gets its story across. The guy's story is incredible.
Sean Stone did that, right?
What's that?
Sean Stone?
Who is
Sean
it?
Stone did Out of Shadows?
I don't think so. No, I think it was that isn't Sean Stone. It's somebody else.
He wasn't involved at all?
I don't think Sean Stone was involved. Maybe he wasn't. I'm being ignorant, but I'm pretty sure he wasn't. Maybe he helped it along the way. I don't know, but they did a great job on that aspect of it. Some of the presentation, again, only because you have somebody who's being interviewed that bought into farces like JFK Jr. was alive.
That shit.
Or promotes that, for instance, Tom Hanks is a definite pedophile when, as far as I've seen, there's only one anonymous accuser that has no documentation whatsoever that, she even accused this guy in a court of law. And for me, that's not enough. Now, I'm not saying... I'm not saying that's not a possibility with Hollywood stars, et cetera. But before you start going and saying those things, you better have, at least some real evidence to point to, right? So you're easily going to be discredited. And one of the other things, and this is a minor gripe of mine, when they covered the Pedogate or Pizzagate stuff, I would have led with maybe the pool email. Pool, a bunch of kids in a pool with their ages named as
ages?
entertainment. No one looks at that and then they're like code words. You can get into the code word stuff later on. But again, overall, I think I gave it a 7 out of 10. And and honestly, I probably would have given it a 10 out of 10 if they had presented all the information the same, even with those code words, without, say, somebody that promoted the JFK Jr. thing, right? Or even Kevin Shipp, I believe his name is, and this isn't a knock against Kevin.
Right.
I don't know a lot of his stuff. He's CIA, and we've seen what other CIA. I mean, he could be good like McGovern 10 years from now. Hell, I had Ray McGovern in Fabled Enemies. I'm glad I had Ray
Right.
McGovern in Fabled Enemies.
Yeah.
I don't agree with everything Ray says either. Still don't. But he's never come out and said, you know what? There are a squadron of molested children on Mars, and we have interstellar travel
Oh,
to that area. And that's not
Steele
Kevin
said that,
Shipp, by
right?
the way, but that's Robert David Steele, right?
Steele.
A guy who had great
Yeah.
information on In-Q-Tel and Google and so many things that turned into a very obvious grifter.
Yeah. No, you're right about that, Burmis. We're gonna wrap it up. So tell everybody, Burmis, where to find you, how we can support you, what you're working on, and give it to us.
It is youtube.com/InfoWarrior, as long as they let me keep my channel with, of course, no monetization. That's why you can contribute to the GoFundMe, but make sure to thumbs this video up, subscribe, and share. And my audience, if you're not involved with the Jackman brothers, you need to be. You need to be involved with the Jackman brothers right now, today.
Give us a look. We're running for Senate. Give us a look. I'm Joe Biden. I'm running for Senate. Give me a look and let me smell your hair.
Exactly. And then they can follow me on Twitter, man. I'm on the Twitter at Jason Burmis. You've been glaring at it all day, and all my documentaries, they're free. I want you to check them out. I want you to share them. They're hard to find. You can Google them. That's going to be tough. Google doesn't love Jason Burmis, but we're at 50K plus strong, 52K almost, and we're going to continue to grow, man. It just shows you people want something outside of the official narrative. They want somebody that isn't just going to raise a flag that isn't going to say, I'm a donkey or I'm an elephant or, come on, man. We're all human beings.
It's so tired.
So tired.
Yeah. People are sick of it. I agree, Burmis. People are sick of it, and that's why we think that you're one of the best, not just independent journalists, but one of the fucking best journalists out there. You don't have a vested stake in a big corporation. You're not Anderson Cooper Vanderbilt. You're not one of the Cuomo boys.
Andrew, I'll tell you, as much as I do not like his policies, I cannot stand his policies, especially the vaccine stuff. I go on and on. I'll say this, man. Boy, does he have some hot daughters. I mean, my goodness.
I'll drink to that. I'll drink to your leg. I'll drink to your leg.
Oh, so there it is. He's a sexist, is he, that Burmis? He closes out with sexism.
Yeah.
No, I kind of kid. But at the same time, he's very smart. He is. I've watched these, and I understand why people fall under his voodoo. He hasn't panicked. And as far as getting the state ready, you can argue all you want, but he did his best to over-prepare, and I think that was actually the right move. And he pushed back against militarism. So I don't want to give him many points. He's a Clinton-era guy. He worked in the HUD group there nationally. Not good news, but, when you're dealing with gangsters, at least he's a charismatic one.
And you know what? The whole thing is overall, dude, we were just sent to document the event, Burmis.
Just to document it.
We're just here to document it.
Just document
exactly.
It. We're documenting.
All right. Yeah, we're going to wrap things up. Burmis, thank you so much, man. It's been a really fun, great interview, and I'm glad we could make this happen. And thank you again to Post and Beam Brewing for sponsoring Politics and Pints, as always. And we'll see you guys next time for another episode. Cheers.